Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of October the 28th till November the 3rd, 2024. We have a really powerful week ahead of us, and even though there are a certain number of energies and patterns that are playing out in the sky and of course in our everyday realities as well, but these are the more long-term energies, and yes, including the not so nice ones. For example, Pluto finishing its job in Capricorn, the slightly energetic Neptune, uh, Uranus is getting almost energetic, not now because it's retrograde, it's actually moved backwards quite a bit. But, it's the big picture, all of it is happening, these couple of years. So, of course, this year, next year, and the year after is the big picture. So, you know what I mean? And because the transformation, the change, the revolutionary energy is here to stay, the intensity is felt on a daily basis. So there's that. And that is very clear to everyone. This week, however, on top of that, we need to add another type of intensity, which is not exactly that much common, right? And we are speaking about a grand water trine that really stirs up emotion on so very many levels and in so very many different ways. A grand water trine that coincides with a really powerful new moon in Scorpio. Again, a water energy and again, strong mystical energy this week. Besides, as I said earlier, the big picture energies that we know, and yeah, they have to have their course, yes, that type of intensity. There is gonna be serious magic in the air now, in more than one way, of course. There's the very nice side to it, and there is also the scary side to it when the collective unconscious is leaking out because it's so packed with repressed energies. And I'm saying the collective, when it is the collective unconscious that is even more likely to spill than our individual situations, that means there's a lot there. There is a lot of feeling and truth, and that is very important because many times a truth comes in a form of a feeling, in the sense that, well, this is how I truly feel, stripped from filters and self-containment. And sometimes that moment of maximum honesty, where even if it cuts like a dagger, like a blade, or it burns, or whatever effect it has, sometimes it's the best possible effect, especially when that core big truth is a I love you or something like that. But anyway, it's it's severe, it's serious, and it leaves a crater, a massive impact. But this is where it's unavoidable, so it has to come out. But individually, we can very well imagine how it might play out, or what kind of effect it may have on our lives, because knowing the self, right? But collectively, well, if it's secrets coming out, if it's spilling the beans, if it's how one truly feels, the stark honesty, because the world of diplomacy and international affairs and stuff like that, well, I don't necessarily want to say it's not honest, but by its very nature, it has to be a facade, right? Because on pure purpose and with choice, one has to dish out, or in theory at least, the very, very best themselves, their nation, their whatever, but at their very, very, very best. And that's a must. That's one of the rules of good diplomacy, right? So even though it is a tiny bit, not all that core, hardcore truth, it's a Venusian truth, right? But this week, no, it's not the Venusian truth. Actually, that the Venusian truth is shattered. The hardcore, stripped from the good manners and all of that truth is gonna come out even in the world of diplomacy. Now, let me give you sorry, I have a bit of a cold. A very easy example. Let's say one nation, country, or whatever is in high hopes that they will secure a really, really good, some type of deal with another country, regardless of what. And they go to the meeting, and they're surprise, surprise. Well, the neighbor's offer was so much better that they couldn't even refuse it, even for the sake of diplomacy. No hard feelings, right? You know what I mean? This is the kind of example, the hardcore truth. We love you and we want to have very good relations with you, but the neighbor's offer was so, like, down to earth good that, sorry, this is the situation. And of course, this can happen in our lives as well, because Venus makes certain aspects that will, how should I say, feel like Venus, right? Feeling so and so. So, with this being said, let's begin the analysis. So, speaking about Venus, yes, this is one of the aspects that we start with. A square she holds with Saturn. Not a very easy energy due to the elements and the, how should I, expression of the signs. Because Venus in the sign of Sagittarius, well, she is very hopeful. She loves to be hopeful. She loves living on a prayer, on a dream. She likes it. She likes the high. And she has, high expectations. However, Saturn in the sign of Pisces is exactly the antidote of that, where it brings this very optimistic and hype Venus down to earth. And let me give you a really good example. This is and I am very sure this happened in so very many ways in the lives of everyone that works with the spirit. Now, the spirit sometimes leads you on that there's this, symbolic, everyone understands what I'm saying, a mission to help a person or to, I don't know, bless something, or, a spiritual mission that the spirit guides you there. And it's hard or uncomfortable, or are you sure I can actually do this, but it kind of leads you on to believe that there's some kind of reward at the end, but a reward that somehow would delight you, right? You jump into the mission, it's hard, you fight, you win, or, you do what spirit guided you there for, and then the end, you do realize that the experience itself and maybe the thank you or what was the Venus there. Exactly this type of situation. Now, what we do with these realizations, or when the bubble of illusion shatters, however, it shatters, but it's not an empty illusion. It is just the Saturnian side of the situation or journey or whatever Venus wants ultimately. Wherever what Venus asks. Venus in Sagittarius. A lot of people wish to travel, and this is when the travel pleasure senses are activating. Okay, not for every person does it mean that I'm gonna travel right now, get up, and because the lives of many are not permissive of that. Sorry. However, this is when they book the holiday or they start planning or they go to the husband, wife. Oh, I would so love to. And then they start planning. Put what they have on the table. Where have we been in these years? You know what I mean. The technicality of it. And Saturn might come and in different ways. One of the ways is sadly the classic way. Well, it's kind of outside the budget. So we must choose something that satisfies both Venus and Saturn. Venus wants the 5-star experience, right? Saturn can only offer the when you were a student and had to go with the court. Sorry, not tent. Had to go with the tent. Camping, that was the holiday. But the two can meet and there can be a compromise, but you really need to tune up your ingenuity. Either hunt for a too good to be true offer, which is not a scam, or Venus also this week, but towards the very end of the week, is going to oppose Jupiter. Call up everyone you know and see what they know, if they can help you in any way, shape, and form. But this can also represent putting pride. Pride is a complex emotion where very many times Venus herself and Saturn, the limits, pride, right, are involved. So putting pride aside and asking for money from mom, dad, or someone who you know is going to be generous to you or loves you dearly. There are many solutions, but this is the energy, the desire, and how you can fulfill that desire, right? This can be bitter, where you say, then I'm not even going anywhere, and it leaves a disappointment and a mini depression. You can choose that, or you can choose my example where somehow, let's think about this, because Jupiter is in the sign of Gemini. Thinking, if not my brain, someone's brain will come up with a really good solution, and then see what comes out of that. The optimistic approach, but still realistic, because this energy does not really favor spending money you don't have, or you know what, because Venus, especially at the beginning of the week, this is where it's by all means, that doesn't mean demolishing your standards or hopes and dreams, but Saturn asks very strongly to less is more. You know what I mean? Diligence, responsibility, foresight. When Sagittarians need it, oh, they're very good at it. They're not good at it when they're just free from all trouble. But when they're in trouble, oh, their foresight is brilliant. But anyway, Venus is foresight sometimes is a must. Let's just prepare for harsher times because the world isn't living in big peace right now. So, you know what I mean? That's the energy. Anything that has to do with international value, international trade, currencies, square Saturn, there is limitation, right? And not just limitation, Pisces, the trick, boycotting, and the result of boycotting, the result of certain moral considerations, because Pisces is what happened in the past and how I feel about it, because what actually happened in the past is more like Cancer, right? But Pisces is how I processed it, what feeling and truth do I attribute to it. So that, and you can see how that is on fire right now. Mine, yours, Sagittarius, the law, the rule of law, Venus, how valuable it is or not, how incompetent it is. And then speaking about incompetence, I'm so sorry to say this is the aspect of the week and of the month. And to be totally honest, for roughly the next 6 months, what Mars is going to be doing is going to still touch on where we or the situation or something, someone, us, others in our lives or out there in the world is lacking competence or struggling with power or some kind of power ping pong. The way we see it manifest right now in the world, even though at the beginning of the week, this aspect is not exact yet, but it's still already quite strong and relevant. And again, I'm not forming any opinions here or anything. Iran and Israel ping-ponging missiles at each other. That's Mars opposing Pluto. However, the other side to this energy is that their own citizens, the small person who is just a human being who was born in that culture, both for that, the Mars opposing Pluto plays out as, how should I, Capricorn, ultimately, Pluto in Capricorn, right? Ruining their lives, their safety, either either physically or both physically, because in some parts the physical is much more tumultuous, or in other sides, emotion, not just emotion, in any way, shape, and form that is human. Because you can imagine the safety. People are thinking, because is it okay if someone kills in my name if they haven't exactly asked if I'm okay with it or not? You know what I mean? There you go. And this in both sides or all sides. The small person is probably not okay with this. And for the small person, all of this, regardless of the context, regardless of why it's happening, regardless of that, it's simply a nightmare. It's a nightmare even if the person is polarized and living it passionately. Even for that person is a nightmare. The Mars-Pluto opposition is where, well, fate right now, right, in the sense that it's outside of one's actual control. There's nothing one can do about it. This is what we're living collectively. And It doesn't matter why. It is what it is. So where's the will? The will is how do I adapt to it? But we cannot choose being in it or not. Especially, as I said, those souls who are actually within the regions, who are the small people, the citizens. What can they choose? Nothing. Just how to cope better, to survive, to how to somehow make the highest possible expression of what they're living. And that's not easy. And that's exactly the Mars opposing Pluto collectively. Something that makes you powerless because you're in it. The situation is not going to change. It is what it is. But what do you do with it? Because when these two planets, each other's octaves, right? Co-rulers of Scorpio, oppose each other, even if sometimes at the moment of opposition, feelings may be hard and stuff, you cannot take action right there. But that might lead to a big, big action or choice or termination, which is also an action. As in, I quit. There it is. I leave. I give up. I surrender. Or I had enough. I am not tolerating anymore. And the fact that I'm not tolerating anymore is very much supported by Uranus retrograde. So when Uranus is retrograde, then the chaos factor, right, is internal. We are Uranus when Uranus is retrograde. When Uranus is direct, even then we are in a sense Uranus, right? But it acts differently. It appears to us that it may much more come from the external, even though if we track it, it's a different story, but you know what I'm saying. So right now, rebellion, and I had enough, or I want the opposite of this, is very much in the air. It's like a charge. It's just there. You feel it. And it's not going anywhere. And then we have Aries, right? Jupiter at the beginning of the week sextile in Chiron. Some wounds or something that is keeping wounds open, something must be done. Like really, because Jupiter in Gemini, we acknowledge that, how should I say? Even if there is no solution, that has to create a solution needs to come to the maximum of the priority list, the top of the priority. And that's Jupiter actually in Gemini. That's what it does. It sees the necessity. It admits that, yeah, this is very, very urgent. And the mind will switch to that mode, right? It will shift focus from one thing to another. And not just in our lives, in the sense that, yes, we are going to deal with this problem. And it's not optional anymore. And I'm not going to back away anymore. And I'm really going to take it seriously. Personally, something like that. And collectively, yeah, an urgency that like simply must be taken care of. But it's a sextile, so it's really, really positive. It helps. It helps because Jupiter expands not just the wound, right, Chiron, but also the healing process and everything that contributes to it, regardless of what type of wound it is. In Aries, it's regardless of which area of your life, which house, sorry, 20 degrees of Aries falls into, it's still an I am wound. or it's still an I am type of irritant. Something triggers the I am one way or another. So, and Mars opposing Pluto at this very moment, well, very much builds also on that, right? Because what does a powerlessness mean? In any way, shape, and form? Well, it makes us feel the I am not that much more, deeply. So we must prepare ourselves because psycho-emotionally, spiritually, right? Without a shadow of a doubt, it's going to be a very, 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 very intense week. Mercury quincunxes Jupiter also at the beginning of the week. Information, communication, Mercury in Scorpio. Digging deep, uncovering secrets, investigations into Scorpionic themes, death, destruction, what really happened, lies, deception, smoke and mirrors, accusations, but it's a quincunx, nothing is clear. Nothing is really what it seems. It's not getting anywhere. How should I even say this? To throwing information, accusations back and forth does no longer serves anything. Let me exemplify this. Yet another, for the 160th time, another situation arises which points to the fact that the political system cannot be trusted, right? Regardless of what shocking evidence comes out, it doesn't leave an impact anymore, does it? Because no one's surprised. Everyone knows it. It doesn't help anymore. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't even make the situation worse because it already reached the maximum. The cap is reached. You know what I mean? So this aspect is where action is needed, because and further analysis, further understanding per se is not productive anymore, because one understood exactly what is needed, right? So yeah. Now let's move on. Oh, and another thing. Mars sextiling Uranus. Another really, really, really good sextile. It is really, really helpful because Mars in Cancer, very, very defensive, right? But also the energy of a light worker, healer, nurse, doctor, who want to express it in classical astrological terms, to extend their own shell, their own self-nurture, their own self-care onto others, right? Solidarity. And this is where Mars in Cancer, if we look at it from a very stark, militaristic way, because Mars is military, right? People defending themselves. When villagers took up arms and eliminated the problem themselves, they didn't need to wait for the army or militia. They done it themselves. Or, in Dracula movies, when you see the angry mob chasing the vampire with torches and forks and sickles and all that to its castle. That's Mars in Cancer, when people are taking action and their strength is solidarity and care for one another, strong care for one another. Because in sorry, moments of crisis, people can leave the differences behind very quickly and unite forces to eliminate the threat. So that's Mars in Cancer. Sextile Uranus rebellion, right? Or this doesn't need to be physical. This can be political. There are elections under these aspects. So in more than one place, this extended period is election period in many parts of the world, right? So you can imagine the power of the people, and rebellion can be simply political. It can simply be information, Uranus, pure information, data that, no, sir, we don't agree with you. And that's data. So there it is, power of the people in a non-violent, physically way. Boycottings and all of that's also very much this energy. Taurus, Earth, value money. Uranus, the rebellion. Mars, power of the people. If we do it in mass, well, it will leave a big impact. So let's move on for real now. So on the 30th, we have Uranus opposing Mercury. Now, this is important because this is really shocking news or communication, but this is where, okay, we get the realm of conspiracy, but this can have totally non-political or non-dramatic expressions. New technology that is being developed and it's leaked out. And that's like not a conspiracy, that's there. Surprise, surprise. In the sense that, oh, I shouldn't really go there, but for example, if one country relied upon the fact that the other one 100% doesn't have this or that technology, and when the face-off happens, they not only had it, but had that much better. So surprise, surprise moments like this, where the opponent is not what you, or not how you expect, or quick, sudden, spontaneous turnaround of situations, including in our personal lives as well. A reverse of something many times. An informational earthquake. Secrets come out. Freudian slips. If Freudian slip has one of this is it. Because Freudian slip is much more like in the domain of Pluto, right? Well, Mercury, if we necessarily want to include sextiles Pluto. The sextile is still wide, but anyway, so Pluto is there, and then Uranus, the spill out. You don't even know when you said it. I heard an astrologer say, I really can't remember who it was, so I'm so very sorry that I cannot credit them, that Uranus is the individual unconscious. And you can definitely look at it that way. Yeah, absolutely. That's one way of looking at it. So things shoot up from the depth. Something comes out of the closet, or yeah. And also on the 30th, this is when we're already feeling the Mars opposing Pluto very strongly. So let's move on. On the 1st of November, 31st, I just want to wish everyone a very, very happy Halloween or Samhain. And boy, this is gonna be one Samhain where it's really about the dead. Because what I've said until now is just what we see and live, and our more 3D realities and the emotions there. But beyond the veil, things are stirring, things are the storm, the hurricane right now is not here, but beyond the veil. The true wars and recalibration and rebalancing of forces and dynamics and the cosmic order, right? Even if it's like the microcosmic order, well, that firstly takes place beyond the veil. And that is very much in progress. So, yes. And now I go to the 1st of November, and this is where 31st of October, 1st of November, let's call this Samain, because in some parts of the world, they celebrate Day of the Dead and honor that on the 1st of November. And this is when we have the new moon in Scorpio. And the Sabian symbol of this new moon in Scorpio at 9 degrees of Scorpio is a fellowship feast. So new moon creational energy, right? Scorpio has a magnetism. Scorpio is instinctual. Sometimes, even in nature, symbiosis is formed out of sheer need. So friendships, connections that are going to be formed under this new moon, well, they're going to be quite interesting because it's the need and something that whatever type of connection they have in common is the foundation of everything. So not the differences. And usually these connections are when fate weaves a different pattern, This is how fate chooses different routes than she is used to. But Scorpio and the grand water trine, this is where the spirit is so, so, so powerful. This is when the spirit works, it stirs, Mercury in Scorpio, the mind, the understanding, mind over matter, but when the mind has to have its root from in the personal unconscious, because that is the battery. So the knowledge, as much as possible, of course, of the unconscious, the Neptune and Pisces, the feeling, empathy, the spirit, being able to feel the spirit, the power of faith, free faith, not dogmatized faith, because we must not forget that Saturn in Pisces disempowers the ritual. So it has to be free flowing like the Fool card, right? And Mars in Cancer, the power of emotion, power of ancestors. We are not alone in this. Power of everything that we ever were. Our own other quantum selves, our own incarnations, where one must not imagine another incarnation as if it's past. No, it's simultaneous. You are this, but also that, and everything, right? So, this is like a bit of an off topic. Sometimes when you have a deja vu experience, you feel it like a memory, but actually, it happens to the alternate you when you feel it like a memory. So for the alternate you, it's fresh. It's happening there and then. Thank you. So this grand water trine is very powerful, super alchemical, portal to miracles or damnation, right? The choice is ours. Pluto opposing Mars. But miracles, salvation, the power of faith, the power of love, the power of compassion, the power of the sacred dream, the power of one's pure innocence, the purgatory power of this, the release, the tears of healing, acceptance, forgiveness, saying the greatest pain out, speaking the unspeakable, stuff like that. But if you want to know more, just check out the new moon in Scorpio that is on my YouTube channel. So let's move on actually to the very end of the week, to the 3rd. Because as we can see, Mars perfects his opposition to Pluto. But as I said, one way or another, whatever happens this week and under this opposition, we're going to be processing it or working with it for the following weeks and months. Because Mars will go retrograde and it will keep on opposing Pluto in different ways, but that's how it evolves. The energy evolves. We do something with it, right? So it's good. But this week it can feel heavy. It can feel, depending on your archetype, right? Powerhouse archetypes are not going to be very okay. Let me give you an example. You're a big sports person, and the greatest value is your physical body. And by this, I don't misunderstand, because it's absolutely okay for that to be the case, because everyone comes with a different configuration and archetype. Some people have a really powerful, solid, healthy, beautiful temple. That's more valuable than anything, really, isn't it? So yes, absolutely. Something comes, a big flu, or I don't know, something dislocates, a month of rest, and 6 months of recuperation. Let's hope it's not this, but we cannot ignore the fact that Mars is action. Mars is movement, and it doesn't matter which sign it's in, it's still a dynamic energy, right? In the sign of Cancer is debilitated, but that makes it even more try hard, because this Cancerian Mars is more likely to hurt himself trying something hard. For example, not giving up, but in very small instances in life, because the small is just the reflection of the big. Like, they go to the gym and they decide to push it ruthlessly another hour more than they usually do to test their limits, and it goes very, very bad, and they end up in bed. And that's an example. But while in bed, while recuperating, they will realize, well, this is just a projection of the fact that they're so very willful and pushing themselves ruthlessly in a larger in a relationship or in their career or whatever. So you see, this is the energy, so it can be heavy. The strong physical or the powerhouse archetypes are not going to be smiling. The more adaptable archetypes are probably not gonna suffer all that much, but even they are gonna say, what is this? Am I in the twilight zone suddenly, or what's happening here? So yeah, while for others still, maybe the powerlessness is where they are deluged, sorry, with love. They cannot help but accept the love or water trine, grand water. Water can always mean love, right? In any way, shape, and form. But besides this, we have um, the sun trining Saturn. How beautiful. How real. All the reality check that I've been speaking about all this week, Venus, and Venus's reality check is actually ongoing, but in a different way. First, she had a square with Saturn, right, at the beginning of the week. Now she perfects her opposition to Jupiter. Dream, the expectation, right? And now the modus operandi. What Jupiter did in general, how did Jupiter figure the solution out? And Saturn trying the sun, it gets the job done. So this is where dropping expectations is a blessing. Approach life with the purity of the dream and not with presumptions and expectations and prejudices. You know what I mean? So this energy rewards that, but goes against big expectations and my worth, my value, and it goes against selfishness quite a lot. Like a sun trine Saturn rewards sacrifice, rewards choosing the hard way, the long road, the dangerous path, not as a daredevil, no, but as a form of mastery. And psychologically speaking, Sun trine Saturn is where the brutal honesty, the truth, the whatever we had to face and look at, Venus, remember at the beginning of the Venus square Saturn, that is now rewarding one way or another. For example, our hearts feel so much lighter after having shed a burden, or someone trusted you with a big secret, and that trust became like a mutual admiration, and a new relationship is born out of that. Something really, really good can happen because because one chose total honesty. One chose no BS. One chose a balanced way of embracing value or whatever this Venus desired. So, and we must not forget the healing nature of the energy. Jupiter sextiling Chiron all through the week. The release power of the new moon Scorpio, that's always a big release. So, even though we cannot say that the intensity and the fighting and the whatever is going on out there and the hypocrisy of all of that, the shamelessness of that's still going to be ongoing. However, this time magic wells from the interior of our souls. This is when magic oozes up from within us. And what that will do is remain to be seen. And now that we got to the end of this horoscope, and another thing. Mercury enters the sign of Sagittarius also at the end of the week. where it's not very comfortable, but anything that has to do with travels, booking, planning, this is when I'm not saying that you will get the clarity that you need and the dates and the times, but you will see the big picture. How permissive or not, the close future is for travels and for Mercury and Sagittarian things. Certain learning, certain travels, business, foreign affairs, and long distance relationships and loves. Love, Mercury and Sagittarius many times favors love. And you might say, well, Mercury has absolutely nothing to do with Venus. No, but in Sagittarius, Mercury is what it wants. It doesn't need to be a true Mercury, but just a projection. Like a long distance relationship can be very harmonious in the sense that the person's everyday small annoyances and the filth that every person has in them, one way or another, that's never seen and interacted with. That's a plus. That keeps the person on the pedestal, right? So that's what I'm speaking about. Mercury in Sagittarius is really good for just the ideal of things, but not very good when it has to come to concrete. And Mercury in Sagittarius can be like short circuit, way too quick, way too fast, way too instant. So it's like fire sign. Think before you speak and you sign contracts and stuff like that. So yes, but I'll speak about this much more detail next week. And finally, what I want to say, the Day of the Dead. And we know that so very many souls have gone beyond the veil despite their best efforts to, to evade the situation. So we really must send them extra light, extra love, extra care, that we do care about their stories. We do care what happened to them, because all of this helps them move on. And I personally, I'm going to offer food for the starvation victims, because when one dies out of starvation and it's not a disease, or that is a certain kind of cruelty where the soul, how should I say, the hunger persists even after they cross beyond, and that usually brings vengeance. But offering food to them helps them receive the love that they need, and they forgive and they move on. So if anyone would like to do this gesture along with me at the moment of your choosing, that would, I'm very sure that the souls beyond will greatly appreciate this. So thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, bye for now.